Good morning, everybody. It's, July 26th, 2021. This is Meet Me at the Sewing Machine, only we're not at the sewing machine, we're at the cutting table. So should we rename it every time we don't go to the sewing machine? No, we're just going to meet at the cutting table first today. I wanted to revisit this. I showed this in my last video for all of you who were cracking up because my iron, every time you touch it, it goes down, but when you let go, it pops up. So it didn't work with this. This is a binding ease. It's a fast and easy way to press your binding with our heat-safe silicone mat. I had never used it before. I always, except for sometimes, cut my binding on the bias. And I discovered this didn't work very good because what has happened is you have to put it through, you have to put your fabric through these little slots here, and you feed it through and you feed it to this other one. You set your iron here and you pull. Well, as you pull, your bias binding stretches way smaller than it started. And so I'm going to say thumbs down on this product for me. If you do all straight bindings, that means cutting your fabric on the straight of grain, this is a fabulous tool. It's also a great tool if you just need a place to rest your iron, because my iron floats. I don't need that. But if you have an iron that just lays flat or you have to keep lifting up all the time, this would be a great surface for that, okay? But for what I was using it for, I'm going to say not for me. I always want to be honest about the things that I show, and this was one of those things that I didn't demo. I mean, I didn't try before I demoed it, and it turned out I was kind of goofy with it because my iron didn't work and the bias binding didn't work, and so this tool, not for me, but could be for you if you do straight binding. So that's that. I'm going to throw it on the floor. No damage was done. Today, we're going to talk about corralling or organizing or managing, however you want to put it, your scraps. Now, I just finished this quilt over here. Can you show them my quilt, Peter? I did this small one from the scraps from a bigger one that I made. I made a king size one of this very quilt. Then I made this one from the scraps, and then I still have these scraps left over. Now, what do you do when you've made a quilt and you have scraps and they're everywhere? And do you just throw them away? Do you throw them in a drawer and hope somebody comes along and organizes them for you? Do you, every time you need a pink, know that there's some pink in here, and so you come back to the bag and shuffle around for it? I don't know about you, but this, to me, is nothing but trash, literally. But Peter and I were talking earlier. I bet there's about 3 yards of fabric in here, if not more. Now, fabric is about $11 a yard right now, so that's
$14 a yard.
Well, this is solids,
Oh,
Peter.
okay.
So, let's say 11. That's $33 that I would just be throwing away or putting in a drawer, never to be used again. So, I could probably get some good use out of this fabric if I could only manage it. There are days, I don't know about you, but for me, there are days when I just don't want to think about sewing. I just don't feel like sewing. My creative juices aren't flowing that day. But I still want something to do because the dishes need done and I need something to distract me. You know what I'm saying? So this would be the thing to distract me from the dishes. So I'm going to pour this out and look at all the good stuff I have here. All kinds of stuff. I'll move this chair. Throw it on the floor. Here we go. All right. Well, I got some foundation paper there. I don't need that. here's a big old chunk of fabric. I'll put that aside. Here's some more big old chunks of fabric. I'll put those aside. Here's some more big old chunks of fabric. Now see, these would go in my bin with my fat quarters. Or my yardage. Look at that, yummy. I would have just put that in a drawer I mean, that's a bunch of background right there. That's at least a half a yard of fabric right there. So see, if I hadn't got this out, I would have just put that in that bag and never seen it again. That's a big old, oh, look at all that. Oh my goodness gracious. Okay, look at all this. This is some fun stuff. So, it's a mess right now, right? Definitely a mess. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how do you get this into usable scraps. Well, I have a set of rulers here. I have a 2.5 inch. Now I do cut down to 1.5 inch because I like miniatures. I've even known to save 1 inch pieces. Especially in my Civil War fabrics, I will save 1 inch pieces. But for this quilt, I'm going to do 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, and 5.5. So I have 4 rulers here. And then, if the fabric is so inclined, I might want to cut strips. And I cut strips the same way, 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, 5.5. Okay? And I have bins at home, you know, like those shoe boxes, or if you have a huge collection, it may be those under the bed boxes. I don't know what you have. But anyway, I have all of those, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 boxes. And actually, I have I'll tell you really what I have is one of them towers with all them drawers. And it has 5 drawers. And I have each one marked 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, 5.5. And that's actually what I keep mine in. But the other day, I was snooping in the ruler department here at the Always in Stitches. And I found these. Now, I have one of these at home. It's called the Stripology XL ruler. I do love this ruler. I have used it many, many times, especially if I need, let's say I need 20 2.5 inch strips. Well, this has got little slits in it. And I just lay it down, and down here at the bottom it has 2.5 inch increments. Every cut with a square is 2.5 inches. So I just lay this down on my fabric. I don't even have to think about it. I just go do, 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 do. Every time I see one of these little boxes. Now, if I go along the stars, that's every 1.5 inches. So if I wanted 1.5 inch strips, I could cut 1/2 inch strips, 1 inch strips, you know, whatever. These are 1/2 inch increments. So this is awesome if you need to cut strips. Also, if you need to cut squares, because all you have to do is turn your mat the other way and lay it down again and zoom, 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 and you've got squares. I'm going to show you how to use that here in a minute. But that's the big, gigantic one. Then they came out with this one, the non-slip Stripology squared. I think they came out with this one first. And then they came out with the XL. And you can see it has square lines so you can square things up. Let's say you wanted to make your own layer cakes. They're 10 inches big. So you just go here to the 10-inch marking, which is this black marking right here, and you can make your own. You just lay a bunch of fabric on top of each other, lay this down, and whoop, whoop, and you've got it, okay? So that's that one. But then this is what I found. This is what I found. I've not used it yet. It's still in the package. Now, I have both of those, and I use those a lot, especially if I'm making a big quilt that takes a lot of strips or squares. But I found this, and this, I think, is going to replace all of this. I'm hoping. Let's go on the journey together. But before we do that, here's some books. If you have these rulers, you might want to invest in some of these books. We've got Stripology Squared. We've got Stripology Mixology. Stripology, Mixology 2, and Stash with Strips. So all these books and those rulers, zip, 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 you could have a quilt in no time. I love that. I love these books too. So let's open the ruler. What do you say? Might help to have some scissors. Oh, Peter, being the man that he is, thinks he can open it. And he did.
Hold it.
How many people does it take to open a Stripology ruler?
I'm gonna get a ruler cut.
What I love about these Creative Grid rulers is they come with these full page instructions.
Do people read those?
Probably not.
Oh.
You can watch the video.
Okay.
You could watch this video. Okay? Okay, let's look at it for a minute.
It's
It
so
goes-
pretty.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? It goes up to 7 inches this way in measurements. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I hope there's one available for me to buy when I'm done with this video.
There were 5 on the shelf when
Okay.
I picked this
Just
one up.
checking.
0 to 6
What?
this way. 6.5. I think that might be a
Oh my
7.
gosh.
Here's 1/4 inch increments
What?
this way. 1/4 inch. If you lay your fabric on this line right here that says 0, that's a 1/4 inch, 3/4 of an inch, 1 1/4 of an inch. So pretty awesome that way. And again, it has the square markings. See that? So what we're going to do is we're going to get a piece of fabric out here. I'm going
What
to get
piece are you gonna use?
I'm going to get this big old freaky piece here. And I'm going to press it. You know, you don't have to press it perfect. You just want to get it so that it's manageable. Hey, look. Just kidding. It doesn't work. I don't know what this piece was used for.
What are you doing?
I
dog?
have no clue why all this fabric was sewn together. I have no clue.
It's in your stash.
It's in my stash, but you know what? I robbed my girlfriend's stash too.
Oh.
I was at Moda helping her do hers.
So
and
this
she
is
just-
trimmed off from one of her quilts.
She just gave me all her stuff too. So anyway, so we're gonna fix this so that it is a piece of usable fabric, okay? Alrighty, here we go. So, look at this. Now I don't want all this laying off the floor, onto the floor, because that'll give me so much weight and it'll fall off. Okay, I've got this strange thing here going on. So I'm going to lay my ruler down where the 0 is right on that edge. And I'm going to assume these seams are straight. Okay, they may not be, but I'm going to assume they are. So where the 0 is, I'm going to start. I'm going to bring this down a little bit. Start right there. That gives me a straight cut, and I didn't cut enough off, so let's try it again. I'm just lining up this with the seam because I'm going to assume the seams are straight. There we go. Now look at that. Yum. Okay? Got my little trash bin over here. Little trash bin. Okay, I shouldn't have lifted that up. So now I've got my straight edge. Now I got to decide, do I want them to be 1.5? Do I want them to be 2.5? Do I want to get absolutely the biggest piece out of this that I can? Yes, that's what I want to do. So I can get a 4-inch piece out of this, but is 4 one of my measurements? No. 3.5 is. So I'm going to go 3.5. So 1, 2, 3, and there's the little half mark. So I'm going to cut that. And then I'm going to turn it this way. sorry. Turn my thing this way. Now if I want strips, or if I want squares, I can go clean up that edge, 3.5. Do I want another 3.5? I could add 3.5 and 3.5 and get 7. I could have just done that, but. And there, whippity split, I've got two 3.5-inch squares. So that would go in my 3.5-inch square bucket. This one, I can get a 6.5-inch square out of this. Look at that. I love that. What's nice about this is, you know, you square up two sides at a time. It's new, so it wants to be sticky on the fabric. Now look, there's a 6.5-inch, and I didn't have to go through and put my things on. Oh, wait a minute, I only do 5.5-inch. Well, let's do 5.5-inch, or let's do 3.5 and 2.5. Look at that. Pretty snazzy. I love this. 3.5.
You know what just came to my mind?
What?
One of our viewers on our channel,
Uh-huh.
who's a regular watcher,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Brenda of Mount Scrapmore.
Uh-huh.
That's the name, Mount Scrapmore. Isn't
Really?
that cool? Isn't that cool?
Mount Scrapmore, that's neat.
Yeah. And I just remember that looking at this pile of scraps, and I thought of her.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So here now I've got a 2.5-inch square. So I'm going to put that there. Now look here at this.
What you gonna do?
For
What you
every
gonna do?
1.5 is a star. So, but I want 2.5.
That's what you gonna do?
So I'm going to go 2.5 and 5. Isn't 2.5 and 2.5 5?
I hope so.
So there's 2.5. And then look, I think maybe I can get a 1.5 out of this.
Uh-oh.
Maybe not.
Uh-oh.
There's 1. I can.
All
1.5.
right.
I can get it. And a 1.5. So look at there. 1.5, 2.5, 3.5. Got some scraps there. See, I could pick up this scrap. Press it. See, now I'm talking about a day when you just don't feel like doing anything. You don't really want to sew. Isn't this fun? You just pick up one tool. Let's go 5.5. Now that's not square, but it's still a nice 5.5. So we're going to put that in the 5.5. That in the 5.5. Let's iron this piece. Now let's say I'm making a project and I need a bunch of 2.5-inch squares. Now, did you see that wasn't big enough for my ruler?
Mm-hmm.
So, what I would do in that case,
what you
you
gonna do?
see, I would fold that, put the fold line down here, square that up, go over 2.5, 3, and that's a 1.5 there. Now, if you don't want to pick up your fabric, you know, you could always get one of those turning mats. Or you could turn this mat. But my thing is with this tool right here, it's just one tool. And it does so much. I just love it. This wasn't even what it was intended for.
What?
No, it was intended to make strip quilts with.
Oh.
You know, to make your strip quilts. Okay, now look at what I'm doing here. I'm separating my darks and lights. This wasn't all the way 1.5. I don't think I can use that. Okay, let's go back to this strippy thing here. This big long strip, I would do nothing with this. I would do nothing with this. This would just sit in the drawer or collect dust or go in the trash or I don't know what it would do, but it certainly would not be usable fabric because when I'm ready to sew, I wouldn't take time. You know, when you're ready to sew, you're ready to sew. You sit down at that sewing machine, and you want to sew. Now I'm going to go, let's see, I can get a 4.5 out of this. I always like to straighten that edge, that zero edge, and then I'm going to go over 4.5. There's a perfect 4.5-inch square. Look at that. That's pretty cool. Now, what can I get out of this? Let's see. I can get a... Nope, can't get a 2.5, but I can get a 1.5. There's a nice 1.5-inch strip. Okay. This big long strip of useless fabric is now becoming fun strips and squares and usable fabric. Okay, my biggest piece that I keep, 5.5. I'm gonna go 5.5. Five and a half. Look at all this yellow fabric. Yum, 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 yum. Okay, now look, I can stack. What if my pattern called for 5.5 by 4.5 inch rectangles? Well, see, I could just straighten this edge right here. I'm not going to do it because I want to still have squares. But if I needed a bunch of 5.5 by 4.5 or 5.5 by 3.5, I could cut those pieces out. But I want to get the maximum out of this fabric I can. And look at that. 3 in lickety split 3 5.5-inch squares. Now what can I get out of this? Anything? Let's see.
1-inch square.
I could get a 1-inch, but you know what? With these, I probably wouldn't use them. So, what if my favorite size is 2.5? A lot of patterns call for 2.5. And 2.5-inch squares makes the greatest scrap quilts. You can do a lot of stuff just by taking a light and a dark 2.5-inch square and sewing it together. So I could go along here and cut all kinds of 2.5-inch strips. I'm going to stick with my 5.5. Five and a half. And what I'm doing is I'm just butting the fabric right up against that 0 line right there. I'm going to go over here and get 5.5. And I think I can get one more. That kind of like looks like a candy corn kind of. If that were a little more orange, don't you think? That'd be fun, candy corn.
Reminds me of a quilt hanging in the shop.
Yeah, do we have a candy corn quilt in the shop?
Kitty corn.
Kitty corn. We do have some kitty corn. It is awesome. If you guys haven't been in to see kitty corn, it's a fabric line by Moda. Oh, it is so adorable. It's kind of a retro Halloween, but it doesn't scream Halloween. It's really cute. If you're a kitty lover, oh, you will love this. Okay, so I'm going to stack all those up. Straighten this edge. Come over here and do a 5.5. Perfect 5.5. So what would have been in my trash bin or just sitting in a drawer, look at that.
Did you rescue them?
I did, I rescued them. From the Humane Society. The fabric, from the materialistic Humane Society. Okay, look at this. Look what I've got here. I can do a 1.5-inch strip here.
So are you watching the Olympics?
No.
Well,
I don't watch TV.
Okay. So, oh my gosh. Guess what I watched for
Okay,
the first time?
The-
For the first time.
The
I haven't seen it
the
before.
horse ones. The ones with the horses.
No, for the first time that I haven't ever seen. A sport. It's a sport.
Okay, that stuff where they do that like that.
Oh, okay, I saw that the other year.
Is that curling?
I love that.
Curling, I think that's called. That's called curling.
I absolutely love that.
You love curling?
Okay, so for the first time I saw rugby.
Rugby, I don't even know what that is.
Okay, you have got to watch rugby.
You've got to watch rugby.
You just have to. It's one of those things you got to see at least once.
Really?
Yes.
So how does it work?
Oh my gosh. So, these very athletic, for the men's rugby, these very athletic men come onto the field and they have a ball. It's like a football, but it's not a football.
Okay.
And
is it round or is it oval like a football?
It's oval like a football.
Okay.
And they kick it. When they kick off, it bounces first and then they kick it. So they have to bounce it to the ground and then kick it off the ground. And so it doesn't go too far. But then the other team catches it and they have to get it to their side. You can't pass forward. You can only pass back. So you can do a back pass to the person who's to the side of you, but a little bit behind you, and then advance up the field. No pads, no helmets. When they get somebody to the ground in rugby, I don't know the rules, but I'm just guessing off of the one session that I saw. One person from one side can be on that person trying to get the ball to retrieve it, and then another person from the other team can be on their side trying to retrieve the ball.
Are you guys just letting like everything you say go in one ear and out the other? Because that's pretty much what I'm doing. I'm not listening to a word he's saying. He lost me at ball that's shaped like a football. I'm so sorry, Peter. Sports are not my thing, but it sounds interesting. So, why do we not hear about it here in the United States? Is it not a United States thing? Or it is?
Because our football players are overpaid and wear pads.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so anyway, this
So it's
man,
kind of like football.
this man got his eye cut, bleeding all over his jersey. You
Oh,
can't even
no.
see what
In the
number he is
Olympics?
in the Olympics.
Oh, no.
Guess what?
What? They
He
just kept
he
playing?
just wipes the blood off his eye on his wristband. They put a little bandage around his head and he goes back out and plays.
What country was he from?
United States.
We have a rugby team then.
And we won.
We did?
Yes.
See, I didn't know anything about it.
We were playing Kenya.
Oh, okay.
And they were good too.
Yeah.
So
I
it was
didn't
very
even know we had a rugby team. I didn't even know what rugby was.
well, it was very fascinating.
Yeah. Well, I figured you'd
How are
be
we doing
watching
on
the
these squares?
horses. I figured you'd be watching the horses.
They weren't on.
Oh, they weren't?
Oh. How's the square pile coming?
Well, see, I got to talking about your story, and now I've got a rectangle instead of a square. So I'm going to have to see what I did there. Okay. Well, I cut it 5 instead of 5 1/2, so now I'm going to have to cut it 4
1/2.
1/2. So there's 4 1/2. I have to turn. See, this is what I get for talking and trying to listen and telling stories, and
Well, I can tell stories and cut at the same time.
you can tell stories to the people, and they can watch me cut. So now there's a
Exactly.
good 4 1/2. Is this a 1 1/2? No. I can pretty much tell by looking. But here, look, I can get a 4 1/2 inch out of this. So in lickety split, I have, oh, look, I can almost get a 2 1/2, but I can't. So I'm going to do 1 1/2. Put it over here with my 1 1/2 inch strips. Cut this. I can get a good out of this, a good 5 1/2 out of this one. This is pretty darn good. Right here, look. And then come over here to 5 1/2. Now, if I was so inclined, I could do 6 1/2 because this ruler does go up to 6 1/2. I just don't save 6 1/2 inches. That's just me. I figure if it's 6 1/2 inches, I'm gonna. If it's like a long piece, I'm gonna put it in my drawer with my bigger pieces. So 5 1/2. And look. Now I'm gonna ask you, would you be more apt to do projects out of a pile of fabric that looks like this? Or a pile of fabric that looks like that? These I'm going to put with my bulk fabrics. You know, this is big pieces. See, look. Show you how big this is. See, I could get a 6 1/2 inch strip out of that, but I'm not going to because I might need more than that. So I'm going to leave that with my big pieces. And I would put these with my fat quarters. Even though they're not fat quarters, I would put them with my fat quarter fabrics. I would fold them the same size as my fat quarter fabrics. But here, I got 1 1/2, 2 1/2, 3 1/2, 4 1/2, and 5 1/2. I'd take this home, I'd cut all this up, I'd take it home, and I'd put it in my drawers. Ha! I mean drawers. You know what I'm saying, right? My drawers to my cabinet. So, I might go home and watch rugby tonight. Is it on tonight, Peter?
There might be some future episodes
Okay.
that you can
Will they
pre-record.
replay? Will they,
Yes, yeah,
they'll
they're replayed.
Rerun.
They're
reruns.
on the DVR
The
to
DVR.
replay. Yep.
For you.
For cable. Do you have cable?
For cable.
For
I
cable.
don't know because I don't ever watch.
You might be able to stream it online or YouTube.
Oh, maybe I could get on my
Yeah.
iPad.
Yeah.
Look up, how did the U.S. rugby team do? I bet they'll show highlights. Then I can at least see what it's about.
It's
right?
educational, yes. From an educational standpoint, it's worth watching
Yeah.
them play rugby.
Well, you know, you should be informed about what goes on in your country.
So here's the thing I was discussing with my wife. You know, gymnasts, these little girls start when they're like 3 years old, 4 years old, 5
yeah.
years old, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I was asking I said, well, how come I never heard about rugby, You know, it would have been nice being 8 years old playing rugby.
Yeah, there you
so
go.
how do these young kids? When do they start playing rugby in the United States? Because they don't have it in the school that I went to.
Yeah. I
I
never heard of
couldn't.
it.
I couldn't tackle people without pads and helmets and wrestle
And
with
why
them on
do
the
they
ground.
do that? You think that maybe they're a little off because they've been hit in the head too many times.
Well, surprisingly, they don't hit each other in the head.
Oh, good. I'm going to finish this up while we're talking about this. It is interesting, Peter. I just am not a sports person, and so sports do not interest me one little bit. But now to hear you talk, I
mean,
think,
these men are chiseled. Did I say
Yeah.
how fit they were?
I think you did a couple
Okay.
times. So
All
I
right.
think you're impressed by how athletic they are. Of course,
Yes.
most people who
Very
are in the
athletic.
Olympics, don't you think most people who are in the Olympics are pretty well
even the
fit?
ref was athletic. I think he was
I think
Australian.
he'd have to be. I think the refs would have to be the most athletic because they have to run back and forth, run back and forth, run back and forth, keeping their eye on the ball or whatever they're supposed to be keeping their eye on. Yeah, I would think that would be the hardest job of all.
We watched
I wonder how much they get paid.
We watched women's skateboarding too. That was on.
Women's skateboarding.
Mhm.
Oh, is that with the wheels?
Uh-huh.
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 This is Summer Olympics.
Uh-huh. Summer.
So, no figure skating.
Winter.
Yeah.
Uh-uh.
But do they have horse events, equestrian events?
Yeah, I haven't watched those yet.
When will they be on?
There was some pre-recorded ones that I can watch when I get home.
I knew you'd be
They're
interested
dressage.
in those. They're what?
Dressage.
I don't know what that is.
Fancy dance moves that horses. They look like the horses are dancing.
Fun. I always love it at the state fair when the big Clydesdales come out and they pull the big wagon.
Have you seen a draft pull where draft horses pull like tons of weight?
No.
You would like that.
On the horse?
You would. No, they have special harnesses and they use several horses and they're very strong and very powerful and they pull these. I don't know how many thousands of pounds, but it's amazing.
Yeah.
You can, if you're there, you can just feel the energy shoot through your veins.
Really?
Mm-hmm. All that horsepower.
Look at all these yummy 1.5-inch strips.
What do you got
I
over
have.
there? How many squares?
Some 1.5-inch strips, but I got a bunch of squares here. Now, I want you to know that this ruler does so much more. I'm going to cut this into a square because it's bothering me that I just left it like that. How big is this anyway? See, this is not a measurement across the top here. So let's see. 3.5. I'm going to cut it 3.5. I can get a 3.5 out of there. 3.5. See, I've got these measurements here on the side to tell me how tall it is. There's my 3.5-inch square. Now I know I can get a 1.5-inch strip out of that. Look at that. 1.5-inch strip. Now the reason I save 1.5-inch strips is because these are good for log cabins. If you love to make a log, log cabin quilt, you need all different sizes. So these are kind of fun. If you have a leftover piece and you just want to cut it into a 1.5-inch strip, then you can make yourself a little log cabin out of those. So it was fun to just kind of hang out with you today. I would look online. You can see the full tutorial on Creative Grid's YouTube channel. They have lots and lots of rulers. We carry most of their rulers. What rulers we don't carry, we definitely can pre-order for you. We can order for you. If you go on our website, you'll see what all we have. Peter puts underneath the YouTube information underneath the picture here of me talking to you. So just go down there and there's a link and you just click on it and it'll take you right to our Facebook page or our website or any of those kind of things. And I don't know if he can put a link to the Creative Grid website or not. He'll try and do that. If he can't, just Google Creative Grid. And they have a lot of great,
Lots of tutorials.
Lots of great tutorials, and especially on these strip rulers and the Stripology books. Let me show you those again, the Stripology books. Well, first of all, look at all this that you can do with strips. Now that doesn't look like strips, but it is. They've sewn a light and a dark strip together, and then they've cut it on a square, on a diagonal. Look at this fun quilt. Boy, that is fun for the holiday, isn't it? Oh my gosh, look at that quilt. I don't want to show the instructions, but look at that quilt. Easy. That would go really fast. Let me see if I can't find something. Oh my goodness, look at that. Is that a jalapeno pepper next to, oh, that's a margarita. I thought that was lemonade. See, I don't think that way, but oh, that's pretty. Okay, look at this. Don't show the instructions, but isn't that pretty?
Looks
So-
like barbed wire.
Yeah, these stripology books, they go really fast, these strip books. And here's one that does just squares. Oh, here, look on the back. That'll show you. I mean, that looks complicated. Your friend would really be impressed if you gave them a quilt that looked like that. But it's all just strips and how they're cut. Pretty easy. Look at that. Ooh. Now that was all, see, 1 inch and a half inch strips. You could make that quilt if you saved all your Halloween fabrics and cut them up, all the scraps that you've ever had.
Or Christmas fabric.
Or Christmas.
Or Christmas quilt.
Or just even any scraps. You could make this quilt just with any scraps.
And if you don't have scraps, you can shop out of our 10-cent bin.
Yeah, or fat quarters. You could cut up fat quarters. Nothing says you couldn't cut up your fat quarters. Cut a strip off of all your fat quarters, and you'd have a massive, beautiful scrappy
Oh my God,
quilt.
that'd have the largest quilt ever.
You'd have the largest quilt in the world, would you, Peter?
Yeah.
Got a lot of scraps, huh?
A lot of fat quarters.
Good idea. But anyway, this ruler does so much more. I just wanted to show you what I was going to use it for. It's going to replace all this for me. When I sit down to manage my scraps, this is usually what I pick up to go and sit. Then I have to go, okay, now this one, how big can I get out of that? Well, I can't get that big. Okay, can't get that big, but I can get a 1.5. So, I have to, and then see it's just little and I have to keep moving it and blah, 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 blah. This is going to save me a ton of time managing my scraps. I'm going to buy me one of these today. And there's only 4 or 5 more left, and if Peter buys one, you better
And there's
hurry.
3.
Better hurry and get in. You can
And
also
there's
call.
3.
You can also call in and reserve one for yourself. It's the Stripology Mini, I think. Let's get a good picture of the. Where's the little paper?
It's
Where's
gone.
the nice paper that we have?
The instructions,
The instrucciones.
it's buried under your mountain of scraps over there.
Probably.
Oh no, it's by your sewing machine.
Oh, here it is. Show them the name again, Peter.
What's the name?
Stripology Squared Mini.
Very nice.
And I forgot to tell you about the non-slip. All the creative grids,
Yeah, they don't slip at all.
they come with this like sandpaper, but it's clear and you can see through it, and it doesn't obstruct the lines in any way. And all these lines mean things. I mean, they're awesome. And so if you consider how much money I have in all this ruler, when I could have just bought this one ruler.
You can.
Wow.
You can buy that ruler.
I am buying this ruler
Oh.
today. So that's going to be I'm going to sit down with all my scraps, going to sit down with one ruler, a rotary cutter, a mat.
Well, I know what you're doing this week.
I might just do some scrap cutting because I could get this all into a manageable amount of space. And then I just may make another quilt out of this fabric.
You could.
Come back next week. I'll be at the sew machine. Maybe I'll be making a scrap quilt with all these scraps. Who knows what I'll be doing? Come and see me next Monday. Bye.